definitely have to remind myself that when the travel gets heavy of like, this is what we wanted. Like I wanted to be able to like it, you don't get the travel the world part without some really ugly flights occasionally.
Yeah. Especially when you're jumping a pond and you're going over to the other side, going into Eastern Europe, man, I can remember a few different times in my strength career. It was almost 2 days before I got there, like 46 hours of travel. And then you got to get up the next morning and you're in the first fucking heat.
Dude, I remember for Highland Games, one of the only times I would ever splurge was when I'd go over to Scotland in the summer. I'd buy the nicer seats on the plane so I could actually lay down and sleep. Mm-hmm. Because, growing within like 10 hours of being on the ground. And so we're over there to make money. I mean, shit, in Scotland during the summer, like I'd go compete, 11 times in 16 days. And so.
Yeah. So you get over there, you just go literally you just keep competing. I mean, having a day off is like, oh my God,
No, it messes things up. You get that weird day off.
Yeah, for sure.
Thing. But dude, how have you been? How are things? How are you working your way through the weirdness that is the current world we're in?
I'll tell you, bro, that's a great question because, when this whole thing hit, it's just like, there's a certain amount of disbelief. Like, I remember telling my kids, I was like, all I could really say was, I'm sorry, because I never thought that they would have to see something like this. I figured this was going to be, down the road, but just feeling poor for them because they've got this new landscape to work with. For guys like you and I mean, we've made our careers out of adapting to new situations. So, I mean, it's a pain in the ass, but it's something that we're accustomed to dealing with, as to where, our kids and some of the younger generations, they have no idea how to adapt. I mean, especially the snowflakes, for Christ's sake. They're just sitting down having a good cry. They may never get back up. But me, man, I saw this as really kind of comes down to an opportunity because every time something fucking kicks you in the nuts, or for that matter, the whole human race in the nuts, it's the strong who get back to their feet quickly. And when, guys like you and I are back to our feet quick, we got lots of opportunities,
That's exactly it, man. We're used to there being an obstacle to go at. We operate, and in fact, most of us, as far as I could tell, operate pretty well with an obstacle ahead. It's when we don't have one that we end up getting a little lost.
Yeah.
To put the
Isn't that the truth? You're so correct. It's so true.
It's way harder for me to figure it out when I don't have a thing to go against, or a carrot to chase for that matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's tricky.
Yeah, that's when I start getting myself in trouble, when I don't have something I'm focused on, my mind starts going in the wrong places.
Yeah. So what are you focused on now, John? What are you doing? Are you coaching? You're not still competing.
Yeah. Well, last time I competed was in the tail end of 19. So I was actually in prep. I was in prep for the Cal Pro, which was a week after the New York Pro. Obviously now I'm currently have a IFBB pro bodybuilder, and the Corona hit. And at the time I was 48 and 49, and especially what it takes to get on a stage, especially a pro stage. That last couple of months, man, you're hot. You're putting your body through the shit that you got to go through. And so basically when Corona hit, they start postponing contests. And I was like, you know what? I want to continue to do this as long as I can because I love it. So I'm just going to kind of wait till the schedule settles down and compete again. So I took the whole year of 2020 off. I was planning on competing this year, but then with Corona developing, what happened is my wife and I, we were in the Bay Area and, by San Francisco, and that area is so different after Corona. I can't even tell you. It's crazy. So we basically shipped out of there. What's that?
I mean, the West Coast itself has been really strange.
Oh my God. No. I mean, even at like Portland, Oregon and Seattle, these places are like war zones.
Texas or Yeah, it's wild, man.
I'm
It,
Yeah. And so basically we moved to the southern part of the state. And what we did is I'm a country boy. I grew up in the country as a youngster. So being in the country for me is, like when I was a kid, it wasn't uncommon for, you get caught behind a tractor, and you're driving slow behind a tractor for a little while till he can pull over. So that type of an environment, I'm back now. I'm based in Southern California, and I'm out in the desert. I like the heat. The heat has been very, very good for my body. So, so I'm actually about half from a small town. It's like probably about 500 people, but I even live 15 minutes away from the town. It's a little private lake with about 50 homes on it. Oh. And so it's great. I mean, it's perfect. And then the best part is I can drive south to my vacation house in San Felipe, Mexico in like 5.5 hours. So the wife and I can say, hey, let's go. We just get in the car,
Yeah, that's
so with the move, basically that's what kind of fucked up my season for 2021, because you can't prepare for a bodybuilding show at the highest level unless you set up 4 months of full-blown fucking Groundhog Day. Every day's got to be the fucking same. And if you have something taking you out of Groundhog Day, you're not bringing your best to the stage. And it's that fucking simple. So as a pro, you got to kind of realize, hey, it's better for me to realize I can't come in at my best, especially as fucking old as I am. I'd rather take the time. My body actually has healed quite a lot through not competing. Everything from my joints to my blood panel, everything is kind of really firmed up, which is great. And another thing too, as you get older, I really realized the formula for me to train has been changing. So I really got that nailed down, because understanding that going into a prep is huge, because as you start to realize that your training formula is different and you're trying to figure that out at a prep, that's not a good time to figure shit out. So this time off has been, although I miss competing, it's, definitely, I feel it in my stomach. I want to do it. It's what we're talking about, having that thing to go for, having that thing to work for. I can't wait to get back at it. So basically 2022, I've been away from the stage for 2 years, which is a long time. But yeah, then I'll be 50 years old too, which is kind of cool. So I'll come back as a 50-year-old. And, the key here is I'm going to go back, and I'm an open competitor. So I'm competing with the young fuckers, So the key is to come in there. But at 50, I got no illusions of winning fucking Mr. Olympia. I just need to be competitive with the young fuckers, So at 50 years old, if I'm in the middle of the pack and I'm fucking duking it out with the guys that are 30, that's for me. That's good. I'm happy with that, because,
dude, you've held such
what's that?
You look great, and you've held such an incredible physique for years, man. And you mentioned, finding the different training formula as the older you get. Like, I'm noticing this now more and more as I'm closing in on 40 and have a fake knee and probably need a hip replacement. I did a circuit yesterday or 2 days ago, and it was like cleans and back squat and then snatch pulls and then front squats. And I don't think, I never had over 155 on the bar, and on the bar, and I'm wrecked. Like, my back and stuff just doesn't move as well anymore. And so I'm committing to like this training cycle of really slow linear periodization, that like today's exercise, like I did six sets of 6 on deadlift with the bar. Like, it's just constantly trying to rebuild. So what have you done to maintain, really, like you said, letting your joints heal up and all that?
Yeah, well, it's the number one thing, brother, hands down, is the diet. Because the training is what breaks us down. It's the diet and the rest that rebuilds us. And so basically my diet, hands down, has been, because first, I was in the world of strength. Then I went from there into wrestling, which is not really a sports entertainment, let's call it, but you're fucking bang. I had more injuries in fucking wrestling than I did in any other goddamn sport. But
wrestling is so gnarly. I get it.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Well, to take that type of punishment, you just keep reminding yourself you're getting paid, Yeah. So the diet has been that thing that's allowed me to transverse all 3 of these. But more importantly, it's allowed me to keep my physique the way it is all, constantly. So really what it comes down to is my diet is really pretty steadfast. Like I'm always realizing, how to make it a little bit better, but I've been so dialed in the diet for so long. The diet changes, but it changes slowly. The training is where it starts to, obviously for just a training protocol, you need it to be drastically different. So you're always making these drastically different changes. But then as you get older, you got to realize, how do you match your training, meaning that you can recover and go back and do it again tomorrow? And so to answer your question, it's really the diet is really the primary piece of the puzzle. The training is something that really it's a balance. You're trying to find that balance. There's the rest and the recovery. There's the diet. And it's like some days, I hate to say it, but, and I even tell the people that I work with, if you don't sleep well, if you feel like a piece of shit because you slept terribly, don't train. It's not helping us, Right. So that's really to answer your question, the diet is the key. But then obviously understanding when to train hard, when to pull back on some sets. When I was younger, Jesus Christ, I made myself on these brutally high volume, high rep sets, like just fucking taking like 10 sets of 10 was one of my staples as a youngster. Only because I'm an OCD freak and I just like to repeat shit. And I knew that if I did that and I pushed every set, I was going to be fucking wrecked when I left.
Way to do it.
Yeah. So, and then, doing stuff where, like I put on, shit. I remember I was in college. I was really starting to get strong. And so I'd go I was training in my college gym. So I was kind of unknown. So I'd show up to a Gold's Gym. This is like 1991. I'd put a fucking 400 pounds on a squat bar, 4 plates, and I would just squat until I couldn't do anymore. Keep in mind, never intending to put it back on the rack, putting the catch rack. So when it was done, I couldn't make it to the top and I was bailing out of there, and people just didn't understand that. Well, to me, it made perfect sense because if you're not going to go all the way, why do it? And that's kind of been my whole thing. And my whole life has been, I got lucky with the fact that somehow I got dropped on my head just right. And I was either all the way or not at all.
Dude, I resonate with that quite a bit. I resonate with that quite a bit. Now you're talking about dialed in. I know for a long time you ran kind of a carnivore low fat diet, kind of a keto, more of a keto higher fat diet, lower carb, right? Is that still kind of your plan?
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, 100%. Really, as I've gotten deeper into what I've done, I've realized that it's really, people think calories, they think macronutrient, when in actuality, it's the micronutrient, which is the currency. So, it's like perfect example, high fat, 10, 15 years ago, it's very different to me than high fat now because there's selected fats that I'll use and selected fats I won't come fucking near. Because you can put some fat in your stomach that your body will process really quickly, or you put fat in your stomach that'll sit in there all fucking afternoon, and then it slows down your metabolism. And really what it comes down to it, you say, how do I stay in shape? I just stimulate my metabolism with food, so, my body is constantly spinning, not because I'm fucking doing cardio. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, you just keep throwing the right fuel on the fire to keep the fire stoked.
Exactly. And so many people just fucking misunderstand that. They think, well, fuck, I'm just going to eat less and do more exercise. Well, that's just telling the body, okay, store some fucking fat and make sure that you very low energy. I don't understand how people try to live their lives hungry and tired all the time. That's fucking miserable.
Oh, it doesn't seem good. And it seems that we've convinced ourselves that those two feelings have to go hand in hand with body composition change.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's really a shame. I think people get caught up, right, in the different, and they don't understand the nuance between talking to experts like us who've done a thing to be the best at a sport and how not normal that approach is to health. Like they're different approach.
100%.
Now we can get you to the health
100%
if you want, top end performance, we're not talking about health anymore.
Yeah, of course. And then of course, then that statement takes us off into, I mean, I've heard you and other shows talk about, basically, and I've been through it too. We've pretty much everybody that's been running around the international scene has had some exposure or addiction to some sort of a painkiller, which then really starts fucking you up. I mean, that stuff is like, it's too bad that, years and years ago, they didn't open up some of these other methods of dealing with pain other than the fucking medicines, but it's the goddamn drug companies. Of course, it's all about, it's a business,
Yeah, man.
So,
but yeah. As well. Luckily I got out of a bunch of years of surgery without having anything too bad, other than I realized those aren't for me. Big fan of other drugs. Those are not for me.
Well, yeah, and the thing about it is when for what my issue was is when I get hurt, have to have some have to work through an injury and use some sort of a painkiller to manage the comeback process. Well, then you come back and you're not using it for the pain anymore. You're using it to feel normal, and there's the fucking problem. Yeah, 100%. Let's get nice and numbed up.
The Advil for a Percocet, and all over the world. It's just man, that path has a finite line to it. Not
100%. Yeah, 100%. And then once you start dealing with that, you're masking your body signals. Well, you're not just masking pain, you're masking emotion, you're masking hunger, you're masking all the signals that you need to feel to manage your body the way that you should, but it doesn't matter when you're hooked, because all you want to do is take it so you don't feel anymore.
They're not actually doing anything to help the injured area. You're just not reading the
exactly
from it anymore. So you're still kicking the shit out of it, making it worse. You're not giving it time to not reducing inflammation. It is just a block. Yeah.
And that's, I think early on in my career, before I really started to understand that, I think that was part of the problem. Is I thought that it was some sort of an aiding process, because, you have a surgeon tell you, look, you need to take this because it'll help you get through your recovery. Well, shit. Okay. I need to recover as fast as I can, but he didn't explain, look, you take this and you have the ability to hurt yourself even worse. That was explained to me. What wasn't explained was this is not going to help you heal. Oh, fuck. Well,
I wonder if at some point we'll get a split to where, we actually have surgeons and doctors that are used to dealing with people like us and understand how the recovery process needs to be treated different than if you were dealing with, my mom. And it often seems it always is. It seems they have one plan.
Yeah, that's it. That's totally it. And because, if you think about it, you go to most doctors, they're trained in such a they've got so much information they're having to download, and then they have to take that information and apply it to individuals. That's a big job, man. They obviously have a sports doctor, but even sports doctors, until they've worked with a whole lot of different type of athletes that respond differently, it's still even hard to understand. I can totally get the challenge of being a doctor with trying to, like you said, dealing with one of our moms versus dealing with us. There's a big fucking gap to fill there,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And after all the surgeries, John, I wonder too, because man, the number of people that have reached out and that have been told that, they won't do this again or won't do that again. And hell, even me with my stuff and then getting back into running. I think at this point, we're just such a litigious society that doctors and surgeons have to say like, you probably won't do that again. And then that way, if you do, it's a win.
Yeah. 100%. But then again, you got the guys like us, and when we're trying to get where we want to go, we're not too worried about the consequence on the way there.
No, we're not. No, we are not, man. Now you mentioned select fats. What are you doing fat wise? Because if you're not using carbohydrates and glucose as a fuel and you're just sticking with fats. Are you basically just sticking with animal fats, or are you doing MCT oil, or are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, really, what it comes down to is I mean, there's because that's people ask me that all the time. It's like, okay, well, what do you mean by good fats, essential fats? We got to think of number one, if it's man-made, it's not going to be good. You know, like they have these fucking trans fats now that get in your fucking bloodstream. Your body can't even break them down, so they're just floating around in it. You know, but and another thing that I'm real big on is like when I counsel people and I coach people with nutrition, I don't talk to them in grams. I don't X amount of grams of fat, X amount of grams of protein. I talk exact foods because it's about figuring out what foods are going to work best for you. Like for me, avocado is just like it's the best fuel that I know, period. I can have avocado and it just releases right away.
Right.
I've had clients that avocado doesn't work as well as avocado oil. I mean, do we know why? Not really, but it doesn't make it why. We just know that that's the right formula for them. So, it's avocado, it's, almond butter, obviously the olive oil. But really what it comes down to is there's whole lots of fats out there that you would call that are labeled essential. And really what it comes down to is, because they're not man-made, but it doesn't even matter about that. What it matters is that you find the fats that work best for you. And once you find those fats that work best for you, it's a whole new game you're playing. It's almost like we all have those certain things that are just kind of sweet spots for us. Different types of proteins will break down differently. A perfect example, let's take, say, a whey protein, which is, obviously engineered protein. You put a whey protein in someone's stomach and then you put an egg white in someone's stomach, you're going to have two very different processes and how their digestion unfolds and how it makes them react. And so the biggest thing I can tell anybody that asks me this question is there is no formula for everyone. There's these guidelines that we have to kind of get inside of, and then we start pushing buttons to figure out what is your exact formula. And without that, because I mean, unfortunately, the industry right now is just, there's fucking nothing original. There's nothing fucking organic. There's nothing authentic. It's just these blanket fucking pieces of information that people that don't know try to follow. And then they wonder why they're not having success. And they're spending all this money on, direction, coaching, supplementation. None of it's fucking working because they don't really understand that their formula is not, to find their formula in this blanket coverage is like looking for a fucking needle in a haystack. You need someone to help you, but here, let's start here and let's twist and turn.
And most people don't want to do that much work, and most people don't want to hire a coach, and most people don't want those things, yet they're going to read the single article and have this expert opinion. And we've such a clickbait world that people just want to read the title of an article and then believe they're an expert opinion on it. And most people have never dieted, never changed body, never. Most people will only gain weight for their entire life.
That's a good point. That's very true. If you break it down to the most simplistic, it's right. They start, once they leave high school, it's almost like that once a male at 18, if he's not already fat, it's almost a guarantee he's going to get fat.
Very few people turn it around. I mean, most people, the them is the least away.
I mean, and just like you said, people want to read the title. They don't want to get into the middle of it. And that's the thing. I love what you just said, because there is no single answer to any problem. Whether we're talking about diet, training, there's 100 answers that come together to make that one answer that works for you. Right. It's like, people say, oh yeah, the program, it's individualized. It's, everybody's different. People will say this, But that same person will be the fucking first one to try a program that his fucking buddy's using because his buddy got progress.
Right.
Well, what the fuck, man? Follow through with some of the shit that you're spewing here, you know?
Listen, you know that we would rather have a personal anecdote and use that as evidence than putting ourselves through this workout. Whereas the diet stuff is, you know, the older I've gotten and the more that I've tried to work on body stuff, like the diet is so much more the important factor than any of the training.
Yeah.
And what I try to tell
the
training really comes down to what will you show up and do every day? That's whatever's going to be. Whatever you'll show up and do every day is going to be the one to do. And how little the X's and O's are really important unless your goals, you know. Now, if you want to be, I don't know, a professional cyclist versus a professional bodybuilder, the program's going to be slightly different. There's going to be some things to follow there. But at the end of the day, if you're not fueling properly and you're not sleeping properly, then you're still just spinning your wheels.
100%. And you hit it on the head, whether you're talking about cyclists or bodybuilding or powerlifting or throwing, what can you manage to do on a schedule? If it's too much and you can't do it, step it down, because it's the consistency of this equation. It's not crushing yourself for 2 weeks or 2 months. Can you do it for fucking 2 decades?
Right.
You know, in 2 decades, for some of us, for some of us, 2 decades is a fucking down payment. Christ, I've been doing this. Jesus Christ, I've been training. I haven't missed a scheduled week of training in like 33 years. You know,
that's why you look the way you do. This is how it works. It's like, you know,
but you're so correct,
right? You run into your friends or other people that don't lift, or occasionally, you know, they're like, "Oh man, I'm trying to get back into it," and you're like, "What do you mean? What do you mean back into it? I never really stopped. Started when I was 13 for football, and it's been a pretty consistent part of my life since. I've always gotten something out.
Yeah.
So it's weird when other people,
you know, brother, tell me if you agree. Sorry for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
For me, my guess is that you probably have similar position. Training is great, but that's my fucking therapy. You take that away, and fucking people around me have a much bigger problem on their hands than when I get to do my shit. You know?
It's really true, John. And I really struggled with it, man. When I got hurt, and then it was down for a couple years, like, I knew with my knee, like I knew that I wouldn't continue to compete in Highland Games forever or anything else. Like that's part of the gig, right? But man, I didn't expect that I wouldn't be able to like go up and down. I wouldn't be able to train. It's been really hard to find an interest in training when I can't train the way that I love to train, which is heavy and violent. I love that singular comes with heavy weight on.
Yeah. There's something, I mean, I deal with that as well myself, brother, because at this age, I have to cycle my intense training, you know, and when I get to go back into a week where I get to start really fucking, you know, there's a difference between constant tension on the bar and the reps versus looking at that thing and going, you know, just fuck that button. Like, just like that little thing right there felt fucking good.
There's nothing
fucking snap, you know, that feeling of snapping, man.
Yeah, man, there's nothing fucking better.
I mean,
like that's the stuff I miss, is just
and so and that's it. I haven't had a situation like you're talking about where, you know, you had a position where, you know, you were really put out on the sideline. But even just having to learn to not be intense every week was a fucking hard one for me to get past. So I can fucking imagine what you were going through, brother. You know, goddamn, you know. I mean, I've had a couple of periods where I didn't manage tendonitis in my knees, where I had to go down fucking stairs backwards. Yeah. And I was like, this fucking blow, because you can't go downstairs straight. You're not squatting, that's for sure.
No, that's typically a pretty good indicator of whether you're no, for sure. Yeah, it's rough. Now, as the older you've gotten, have you had a chance to mess with stem cells or do any of that type of stuff to try to help, or PRP or anything?
That's a great question, brother. That's a great fucking question. So in my place in just shortly before Corona hit, actually, I was just I had no idea Corona was coming, of course, but I got really fucking lucky and I built my vacation house down in Mexico. And when Corona hit, as soon as they canceled school for my little girls, I packed up the fucking family. We went down there for like 6 months. Well, when I was down there that long, obviously I got to spend a lot more time in the local environment. So I've actually found a couple of doctors, really cool doctors. And one of them does stem cell. And, down there, it's actually not so, retardedly overpriced, so, and I know some people that I've met down there that have had some done from this doctor that have actually, and they're just using it for like, issues with knees and things where they're just old, and it's made a big difference for them. So I definitely plan on moving into that because there's no question. There's definitely a lot of potential there. I'm always one of those guys when I'm going to take another step into something, I really want to feel confident that I know what I'm getting into and that I see what I'm comfortable with my own eyes, that what I'm doing is the right thing for me to do. It's not based on what somebody tells me. I want to see it.
Sure.
And so I'm just about there. The best part is this the doctor that I'm talking about, his office is only about 5 miles from my house in Mexico. So it's fucking perfect.
Man, that's what a killer setup. Yeah, I'm curious. I had talked to the bioaccelerator guys down in Colombia where Ed went down. I had talked about going there for a little bit, and then it just got off my radar. At some point, I need to look back into it, except for I think probably what I need is to get my hip resurfaced is probably what's up, or replaced, whichever one of those first, as it just doesn't move on the right side at all. It's pretty sad. Oh, well. But yeah, I'm interested. I know some people have been down there to do that. Friend in radio is an old skateboarder. Jason Ellis went down and had his knees worked on. I know Ed said he was very happy with how his experience went. Now I've messed around with like peptides and stuff like that. As far as like BPC 157 and some of the others to help kind of hold on to stuff. Have you got to mess with any of those?
Well, here's my thing on those is that obviously as athletes, it's all about creating a scale of, risk versus reward. And you have to become one with your scale. And so one of the things that I've really kind of put a lot of importance on is really just using the different elements of performance enhancements that, or even for that matter, pain management or any sort of substance with something that's got enough history for me to understand what the fuck is going on with it. Because if I'm very confident that if I get into some sort of a battle or a war, so to speak, if I know what I'm defending, I'll be okay. But if I don't know what I'm defending, that to me is not okay. So like, anything like the SARMs and a lot of this peptides, a lot of this shit is sold under research material. Well, let's you and I start ourselves a company. We'll call it, John and Matt's, yellow lightning. And we'll just put a drop of our piss in each one of these things, and we'll put research material, and we have no consequence. And so that concept right there to me is something that I don't feel like if I don't know what I would defend if something went wrong. Does that make sense?
That's pretty tough. No, you're right about that. Yeah, I know that we've seen some more longer term studies now with some of the peptides, because they're just amino acids. But at the same time, I agree with you. Like, I mean, because things are regulated and because you don't know where you're getting them, you don't know what's in what it is.
Yeah.
And to be there just hasn't been anything PED wise that I've taken that helped as much as I wished it would have. And
it never does. That's the thing is that most people, they say, oh, well, yeah, it doesn't matter because, he's using whatever they call it, PED, he's using steroids, he's using enhancements. Fuck, man. Anybody who has gone the distance realizes that there's not one thing to this fucking formula. If that was the case, every fucking dickweed bro science guy in the fucking gym would be jacked, but they're not.
No, there's far. I guarantee you, the percentage of people on gear that are unjacked is far higher than the people that are on.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
Just wasted on gear with poor diet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's obviously part of the problem too. There is that when someone makes a choice to put all this effort into something to make some changes, whether it's competitive or just for their own personal interest, you realize very quickly once you start putting all these elements on the table that they all have to be in play at the same time. It's like, oh, you see a lot of people, it's start taking gear and they start eating like shit. What the fuck, man? The whole idea is that you take the foundation, which is your training, your nutrition, your rest, and your recovery, and you put an accelerator into this. It's not like, okay, well, I can take this element and wipe out the other pieces. It doesn't work that way, No, and even accelerator is a word that we should quantify. I mean, what do you say? I mean, quantify. Okay, you put everything in play. Your accelerator is going to move you down the path faster. At what percent? It's a fraction of what people think. What would you quantify? What would be your percentage?
Like first cycle timed during your 20.
No.
10 to 12.
No. Hell no. But everybody in every bro.
Yeah, I mean, my guess, John, it's breaking up a little bit, but 10 to 12%, I would say, is your most. You there? Are you there?
This might be better, brother. Hold on. Is that better? Is that better? Is that worse?
That seems a little bit better.
Okay, good.
So what I was saying is that, my guess, man, like during your 20s, if you timed it up well and like we're training hard and we're already training hard and eating right and like really nailed it, 10 to 12% tops.
I was going to say, if you, when I have the same thing. What I do is I use 15% because most people won't even accept the argument of less.
Right. Right. They're just wrong.
Yeah. But I found that if you actually want to have someone and actually have an idea, you have to give them at least 15% or they just throw it away. But then once you start to explain what we're talking about, you can see the gears start to turn. But I totally agree with you.
And everything's dialed in.
Yes.
That like you needed to have put in, like, I would say you needed probably a solid 10 years of real training and like really hit a plateau.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. 100%. You versus nowadays, you get some kid that goes to the gym and he has a bad week and he thinks it is time.
No, it's such a bummer, man. There's still, and not only that, I mean, just look at how much the supplement industry sells to those kids when in fact what they should be doing is eating food.
Yes.
Like learn to eat food, learn how to deal without pre-workout, learn how to do these things, learn how to train, all the best music that you can possibly put on. Like, learn how to manage your fucking world in your head.
Yeah. 100%. You know, one of the things I explain to people to try to help them understand how the equation works is I say, okay, they're assuming that your diet is reasonably good. Okay, that's the premise to this equation. You basically have two jobs. One job, you're making $75 an hour. The other job, you're making $25 an hour. You have two, and you can go to them both every day. So the question is, would you ever leave the job where you make $75 an hour early to go to the job where you only make $25 an hour? They say, no fucking way I wouldn't do that. I said, well, if you don't put all the effort into your nutrition and you go train, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
And at that moment, they're like, oh my God, it somehow quantifies for them.
Yeah, you know? That's a really, really great example of it. Of, you know, that whole, I mean, Stan talks about it, right? The same thing as, you know, stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. If
yes.
You're not, like, what the fuck are you even doing in the gym?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. The gym is that, and not to mention the gym is the fucking fun part of the equation.
Yeah.
You know, is it as a kid, if we were allowed to sit down and eat our dessert first, that's kind of like going to the gym without. It's like going to the gym without doing all the other shit that we need to do. You know what I mean?
Man, I plenty of years where I either underate or, you know, most of the years when I was eating, I would say I probably way overeating.
Yeah,
I was just fatter than I needed to be to throw, but I got the job done. Yeah, it's crazy now looking back that, like, what I think I would have tried to do different, and most of what I would have tried to do different is all within nutrition.
Yes, brother, I feel the same way. I say to people all the time, if I knew now what I knew in my late 20s, this would have been a whole different ball game. I love the path I was on, but I would have just been better at everything I did, you know? And, you know, realistically, when it comes down to it, you know, all we ever wanted was to be the best that we could be as individuals, you know?
Right.
I mean, the guy that's sitting there going, I want to be like him, I want to be like him. Well, fucking stop looking at the other guy and fucking put that effort in yourself, you dipshit.
Dude,
you know?
I'm so interested, you know, the older I get is as I really feel I'm fascinated at what this machine can do. I'm also how much it can change and how much it can adapt. And, like, the fact that it can let me do really well at Highland Games, it can let me perform at other sports, and then it can somehow let me do trail runs and stuff later on down the road.
Yeah.
It's amazing what it'll do if you'll just give it time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's like, it's giving your body the resources that needs to be optimized.
Right.
You know, it's just like anything else. You know, we think of machinery, you know, guys that have, you know, hot rods or Harleys or whatever it is, they're constantly trying to optimize that motor, make that motor the best version of what it can be. Our bodies have the same principles. The difference is that, you know, that motor, you know, it's a little bit easier to figure out, you know, your body's just this constant changing, evolving thing. And you've got to understand how to do that. But the bottom line is, just like you're saying, you can go from, you know, throwing to running on trails. And if you give the body what it needs to do that activity, it's going to give you one hell of a good version of what you are right now. You know, I mean, that's the same thing with me in bodybuilding. At 49 years old, I'm actually more shapely than I was when I was 39, because my job is to be shapely, not to be bouncing around in fucking wrestling, you know?
Right. Totally different stuff with more hypertrophy now. But the wrestling stuff, I'm familiar with training for strongman, and I know that I wouldn't train for wrestling in that way. Man, because it's so much movement and so much bounding. I would have flexibility and mobility have got to be such a component. And then you're trying to look jacked too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, here's the crazy part about that, brother. So when I finished with my pro strongman run, right, it was only about a 9-month period from my last contest to my first actual match in Japan on a fucking pay-per-view.
Right.
So, I mean, I didn't fucking, I mean, I went to a wrestling school to learn the dance, so to speak. But you can understand the principles of something, but not be putting into actuality. And that's what I was missing. I was just this fucking big guy that, you know, it was the way I looked that got me my shots.
Well,
and then, you know, I just fucking.
You brought to the table kind of at that time, right? This Ken Shamrock look. Like you were jacked and looked athletic and better than anyone else in the ring. And what a cool character that is for that world.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Japanese ate it up, you know. All I had to do was knock people down and fucking scream like a crazy man and flex my muscles. And that's the basis of my contracts right there. So, I mean, they didn't expect me to do a whole lot because I didn't, you know, they wanted, I served a purpose. You know, the guys doing flips, they didn't hire me to do that shit. They hired.
No, man, know? Way too much of a liability to be flipping through the land on
something. Good. But you're totally correct. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I fucking pulled hamstrings, and it was directional shit, you know, because I mean, for the most part, lifting weights in a lot of strength sports is pretty north-south. There's a little east and west, but not a ton. And all of a sudden now you're in the ring and the floor's fucking moving, you know, because it's got springs under there, so it doesn't hurt so bad when you take a fucking bump. So you're pushing off, it's pushing back at you. You're running and twisting, and all of a sudden all of these angles that I had never been, you know, I hadn't been training in, you know, started. I was like, holy shit! So I realized really quickly that once I started, because you go to Japan, you go for 2-3 weeks and you come home. And I remember coming home and thinking, Jesus Christ, I need to get back in the ring and move around before I show up again. Because, you know, even when I started, I was in my I think I started in my wrestling in my mid-30s, 34, I think. And so, but yeah, it's so different. You know, the diet was another big piece of that, because obviously I still needed to look jacked, but now I need to be able to do a lot more. You know, it's a strongman was great because it's functional strength. And sure. A lot of shit I was doing in wrestling was the same way, picking people up off the ground when they're like fucking dead potato sacks and shit like that. You know, but what I did a lot in my training actually is I went into a ton of Olympic lifting. That was so helpful, you know. Really? And I would just do these really long sets because, you know, you go in the ring, you're trying to control your emotions to keep your heart rate down. But I mean, if you're in there for, you know, if you're in there as a single, you don't have a partner, you're in there for 10, 12 minutes. That's a long fucking time huffing and puffing, you know? If it's a tag match, you're going to be in for 3-4 minutes and coming back out. So you're good. Man. But I remember what I was doing, the peak of my Olympic training for my wrestling. I would always come home and train like a motherfucker because I loved it. You couldn't train a ton on the road. But I did basically 100 kilos power clean for 101 reps without a break. I mean, keep in mind, when I say out of break, I was moving at a fairly slow pace, but there was no stopping, you know?
Who cares? I don't care how slow a pace you were. That's better than my collective cleans of 100 kilos. Dude, one of the nastiest I ever did was there's a CrossFit workout, Grace, which is 30 clean and jerks at 135 for time. And I did it on my 30th birthday with my body. So like 275 at the time, 280. And like did it in 13 minutes, did the first 10 or 11 unbroken, and like I was done for the day. Like it was 13 minutes of, oh, that's that. I can't do shit anymore the rest of today.
Yeah. When you go that deep, you know, when you get that deep into training, I mean, it becomes, for me, I always say, look, first it's physical, then it's mental. When you're really fucking getting into it, it becomes a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
I have learned more about myself deep into long sets, because you really get to find out who you are. I mean, you're fucking hurting. You can't fucking breathe. Everything in you is saying you can't do it again, but you have to try, because if you don't try, you don't know what you're capable of. And that's where the 101 set came from, 101 power clean with 100 kilos, because I thought, I'm just going to take this and go as long as I can, which is really symbolic of being in a wrestling match. It took me I think it was 9 minutes or something crazy thing. But the idea was that I was there was one point in the 60s, I was I'm fucking done. I can't do it again. Okay, well, just try one more. Every time I thought I couldn't, okay, just try one more. Fuck, next thing you know, it's up. I'm fuck, okay, just try one more. Next thing I'm in the 70s. I'm oh, fuck, okay. You've been telling yourself you can't do it for the last 20 fucking reps. Shut up and try it again, please.
No doubt.
The next thing you know, I got to 100, and my training partner was actually kind of keyed in to telling me, okay, it's time to stop or you're going to hurt yourself. But in the 90s, he said, you get to 100, you're done. And I had to do one more just to know that I could have gone past 100, which I did.
Gnarly, man. John, was it you that did 405 for 20 and then dropped it and pulled it for 20?
Yeah, it was. I did that with 405 on multiple occasions. I pulled it off with 455 on a few. The goal was to get to 500. And I could, I could squat 500 pounds on pretty much any given week in that period of my life. But, when I get over to the goddamn deadlift bar and I get about into the double digits, my back would just be so tight. It was I almost couldn't get down to the bar again, I got to tell you, bro, those, here's the worst part about that. I'm sorry. You're fucking dying and you have to, you can barely breathe. You feel like you're pregnant because you're trying to keep as much air in you, and you have to fold at the waist to go get that. That's the worst fucking part about it. You're pulling it to the top. It's okay, I can breathe again. It's the folding at the waist to go get that fucker.
It's the bottom where you're trying to pass out. No, it's terrible. Oh. I ran that and worked my way up to 355 one year, and I fully lost years on the back end of my life. I'm fairly certain. There are years I don't want anyway, which is fine. But there was definitely a payment that day that I'm aware came out of the credits.
Dude, so you're kind of on tune to what I'm talking about. That's this fucking spiritual journey, is it not?
It is, man. And something I didn't realize, John, is once I started doing more of the endurance stuff, and I was training for that run or long hikes, there is a weird mindfulness that kicks in when you're no longer realizing you're having to tell the body to run. It's just, and then you can
it's true. It's that space. That space is in my book. I actually call that portal. You get to a part where all of a sudden you realize shit, pain's going away. And you realize there's this little hole you can jump into, which I call a portal. It's you get to jump into a different state of mind, a different state of being. And you can't do it every day. But God damn it, when you do get a chance to do it, is it the best fucking feeling to exist there?
It's really, really good, man. That spot, whether that's a runner's high or whatever they want to call it, it's so good. I just wish I could figure out how to get whatever rep 25 on set 8 earlier. I wish I could get that feeling, or figure out I would love to have hour 4 to hour 6 of today's run without having to do 4.
Yeah. Well, what I've always believed is as you push yourself into new territory, your body starts releasing some new version of whatever, dopamine and adrenaline and everything it dumps you put it into a survival mechanism where it's okay, if I don't fucking pump some serious shit into the bloodstream right now, we're in jeopardy. And so every time you push yourself into that survival zone and you get that, it allows you to stretch out your ability your mental threshold is totally new after you experience that. It's you realize, oh my God, I'm so much more capable than I ever thought. And to me, that's where it is, because then it's you think until you do it better. And and then And that's it. When it comes down to it, guys like you and I, we need to know that there's another place that we're in search for that next spot. What does the next level of pain feel like? You know,
Now trying to figure out different sides of it with my career, from, the strength stuff, not my forte anymore. I was wondering, so between strongman, bodybuilding, and then wrestling, which was your favorite way your body?
What was my favorite? I'm sorry. What was the last part?
Which was your favorite way that your body felt and operated?
That's a good question, brother. So I guess I was a fucking fat little boy to start, right? So I've got, I'm forever affected, and so in my strength career, obviously you got to be big and you got to be strong. And one of the things that I always kind of didn't like was the fact that, I was always pushing the envelope of being out of shape to get as big and strong as I could. So for me, having abs was that thing that made me feel like the fat boy wasn't getting the upper hand again.
Sure. Keeping a little bit of a gate on him.
Yeah, but strength is my true love, because like we talked about earlier, and that there's that thing when you just get to like fucking come unglued to test a moment in your life. I mean, there's just something about that that's really unmatched. It's like it's all in you. It's all in this short little period of time. So much. You know what I'm talking about. So that's my true love. But then in wrestling, obviously, I felt really good. I mean, I could run like a fucking deer. I could jump. I mean, I was doing shit in strength. I did a lot of box jumps. And, I could get onto like a 52-inch box, which was the stone platform. When I was in, it used to just be 52 across, in the locals, right? In the US contest, when you went abroad, they would get higher ones, and so, or even abroad, the lowest one would be 52. And so jumping on top of that thing was always like a big marker, so I could jump on top of that thing, but I also would skin my fucking shins unbelievably half the time. But now drop fucking 20, 25 pounds for wrestling. Fuck, I could jump up on that motherfucker and land, very comfortably. So I love the fact that I could run like a deer. I could jump. I was still cock strong. I just wasn't, 1 rep max cock strong, And then obviously I think for wrestling, the fact that there's something about walking out in front of those humongous fucking crowds that is really tough to match. There was definitely a period where I came home. It was very difficult for a few weeks to try to wrap my brain around domestication again.
I bet it is. I bet it's a really strange coming back.
And then, but then as a pro bodybuilder, my job is to look a certain way. And so this is really, it kind of goes against my true love because strength, but the fat boy in me, it's real easy for me to keep the fat boy, on the other side of the mirror, because I don't have to eat too much to lift a certain amount. I just have to fucking eat right to make my look continue to get better and better. So I don't have a single answer for you, brother. I hope that ramble on answer.
I think what you're saying is great, man, that you have got to enjoy your body operating at different things and get to see what it can do different. And while it sure seems like those things are closer together than, I don't know, if you were trying to be a professional skateboarder and then maybe ride horses. But at the same time, the focus is different for each one, especially if you're trying to go all the way to the top end of it. Like they're very, I mean, and man, I love that take. I love what you're saying. If I think about, my time during strongman and powerlifting, like, man, I was so strong and I just knew that I could move weight. But then once I got into throwing, I could move. I could still do a backflip, a standing backflip at 300 pounds, and I could snatch over and I could move fast. And then getting into running was different because I've never had a long-term gas tank. And that's been kind of an interesting thing to develop, to know that like, I can run for 5 hours. Like that's different.
Well, you think about in strength, you get used to dealing with pain in, say, a 60-ish second period. Now you're talking about getting into that pain zone and dealing with it for hours on end, which is it's a much different task mentally. So I can only imagine that's got to be a hell of a fun challenge for you, brother.
And a much different pain. It's more of an annoying burn for a longer time than it is the searing flesh that comes with the heavy. Yeah, the heavy stuff lets you know that you're in it. Like, it's never a mistake.
Yeah. It's crazy, brother, especially after talking about, I always remind myself, I think it's very important for everybody to recognize where they came from in this whole thing, and I always, I'm sitting here talking with you, you're a legend of the throwing game, and I just sitting here thinking to myself, you were just a fucking talking about myself, you're just a fucking fat little boy with a whopping learning disability. It was just dumb enough to believe you could do it.
Dude, there's no doubt that that's all I have going on. Like, I went to school on a track and field scholarship, and if it wouldn't have been for that, there's no way I graduate college. I'm not quite sure how this whole thing of throwing rocks in a field has pivoted to me making a living, but I will continue to do it at full speed, the best as I can.
Yeah, and it's just like, and that's one of the messages that I love to say to people, especially for listeners here, don't fucking listen to anybody that says that you can't, because if you want to fucking put in the effort and the time, yes, you can. It's going to take, there's no question there's a period of time between you and your goal, but you just got to, every day, you got to chew a piece of that thing up. Yeah, but, you and I are perfect examples. I mean, fuck, we were just kind of fucking doing the best we could, trying to keep our heads above water, but kept doing what we're doing. And now we're a couple of guys fucking making a living doing what we love. I mean, what else do you want?
I think it's interesting, right? And this is another thing that, I've been talking about with some other friends, but man, we've really experienced a very interesting time, John. Like our I guess, your generation, probably to mine, really this kind of, the older strongmen than you were already out of the game before social media was able to be benefit but we've got to be kind of this first generation of guys who've been able to make a living on this new, whereas before it was only get paid by sponsors or get paid for competing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's crazy you say that, brother, because I think it was MySpace came out about midway through my strongman career. Right. So I was in the front end of no social media.
Yeah, I know.
And it was like,
if someone comes up now and is like, "Oh, I think I'd like to be a power lifter and make a lot of money," that door exists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine if Bill Kazmaier had the opportunity of social media? Oh, fuck.
Very interesting to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're so correct, brother. I mean, a lot of times, and I'll be the first I'm glad that you pointed this out, because sometimes I'm the first to fucking bitch about how much social media has fucked up people. But at the same time, it's also created a huge opportunity for guys like us. So I think this is actually I'm going to slap myself in the fucking chin every time I bitch about social media, because if it wasn't for social media, fuck, man, I don't know what the fuck I'd be doing. I would be
friends. I don't know. My whole life's different. I look at it, and there are negatives to it, no doubt about it, right? Like it's a tool that not a lot of people have figured out how to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just look at it that way. And so, man, it's just fire, and it doesn't have an opinion, and you can either use it to warm all your meals and treat it as a tool and forge tools, cook food and stay warm, or you can let it get out and burn your fucking house down. It doesn't care.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like for us, obviously it meets a handful of needs, for someone that just uses it for entertainment and it starts to engulf the responsibilities of life. That's the part that I tend to be frowned upon, because
I'm very confused by that. I have no idea. If you don't make a living on here, why do you give a shit?
Yeah. No, I mean, I tell all of my friends, I say, look, my social media is where I connect with fans and people. But if you've got my telephone number, fucking text me or call me, please. It's like social media. People use social media like it's a fucking telephone. It's like, are we losing the telephone now?
Well, they all come through the same device, and it's a weird spot. But I found myself that way. That like whether you want to email, text me, or DM me, I don't care. It all gets and it just and like I said, it's not that I don't understand why people use it. Right? I love being able to connect with people and hear stories and talk.
Totally.
But when people who don't use it for a living or as a job are stressed out by it and continue to I don't understand.
Yes.
What it does is show you what you interact with more. That thing is a fucking mirror. If you spend more time looking at what you dislike, it shows you more of that because it doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
And people would look at shit dislike more than stuff they like.
That's a very, very simple but very interesting thought, brother. I never thought about that.
You do.
But you know what? One thing I really do love about social media is it also gives us the opportunity to influence people positively. And I spend so much time in my DMs on my Instagram because people will come in there and talk to me, ask questions. And, many cases, I'll just see someone fucking busting their ass. And I'm the first one to say, dude, you look fucking great. Keep up the good work. Because it was statements like that made to me that helped me fucking do what I did, and I want to be the one to pay it forward, brother. I remember
getting excited when, I'd get a message from Ed or any of our, super friends or any of these type of people around, and it would fucking fire me up, man. So if I ever have the opportunity to make that impact in someone's life, I'm in.
Totally, 100%. And then the fact that people's minds are so trained to think how society has taught them, they don't believe in themselves like they should, or they don't believe there's these all of these things that people are programmed by society that I believe are not true. Society creates rules, not fucking laws. Right. You don't have to follow the rules of society. And when people do, they tend to get lost in the fucking line of sheep. It's when you have the fucking nuts to step outside the line. And most people are afraid to do it because they've never been told it's okay.
Yeah, it's a weird one, right? The kind of skipping the standard path, right? And that's a big one that I try to talk about because, I've done.
Yes.
I'm no kids. I don't plan on having any, and I plan on trying to spend as many days doing whatever the fuck I feel like. And so, like, that's not the standard path, and people don't understand that there are any rules to this. You're allowed to do whatever the fuck you want.
That's it.
You don't get both. You don't get all the benefit of the safety of doing the standard approach and that warm, fuzzy feeling of conforming. No, you get to do whatever you want, but it comes with a shitload more stress because there isn't anyone else there helping you figure it out.
Yeah. But, I'll tell you, brother, as the fat little boy that I wasn't fucking accepted. I didn't have a whole lot of friends early on in life. I had a few. I wasn't like and I'm not trying to say I was a victim. I was just one of those fucking kids that I just didn't quite fucking fit in. I was slow. I was fat, whatever. But having to kind of do it my way as a youngster, especially with I had to work twice as hard, whether it be physical or in school. This is the shit that actually allowed me to be comfortable stepping out of the line because I wanted to be in the line. Nobody would let me in.
Right. Probably for me, once I got through high school, I realized that I just didn't really have an interest in fitting in that much.
Yes.
Because
that's exactly right.
Of people, and I was like, I don't agree.
Yeah.
I'll just stay up. It seems like avoiding that route will be better for me long term.
Yeah. Once that for me, once I got bit by the iron bug. As soon as I fell in love with training, I didn't care what was normal to me was all of the fucking, you know, these dudes that were fucking big and strong and fucking, you know, doing things that wasn't normal. All I wanted to do at that point, I'd completely lost focus on the rules of society and normal and fitting in. I wanted to fit into a very small group, and all I had to do was fucking bust my ass to do it. So I was fucking all over that. So we were totally correct. By the time senior year of high school, bro, I was skipping school to go train. I wasn't skip school to go fuck off.
Right, man. Yeah, dude. Man, finding the weights, and like once I found the weight room in high school and like realized how much I loved that, and I realized that quick connection to how much better an athlete it made me.
Yeah.
I clicked and got it. And then from that, it's always been able to, I mean, I don't care if it's work or creative work or, I mean, podcast or anything, man. Training makes me better at all of it. Whether it's burning off excess energy or it's, you know, in that zone and allowing myself to focus and ready for the day and task at hand. But as an ADD, barely functioning lunatic, like, yo, I have to keep the fire kind of fucking burnt. Otherwise,
totally. It sounds like we were almost identical. When I was younger, I went to train, and I mean, part of what made me such a workhorse was I was just training to the point where I felt like when I trained hard enough, whatever happened for the rest of the day, I was having a good day. If I didn't work hard enough, I still was getting fucking frustrated. It's almost like I get to make sure that the rest of my day is going to be fucking great, all by this 2 hours in front of me. So why in the hell would I not do what I got to do to have a fucking great second half of my day? It was like, this is simple math. You know?
Same for me, John. It's always been the same because there's so many factors that you can get caught up in that aren't at your control.
Yes.
Especially in regular jobs and regular life, regular relationships, and doing, you know, the way people live. So the training was always something that was mine.
Yes.
That way, at least that part of the day, I had 100% control of that universe. And it didn't, and even to the point where I started building my own garage gym out because I didn't have to depend on the gym or people there or showing up and being annoyed because it's crowded or any of these things. I was like, look, I'll just take less equipment and it'll be mine.
Yeah, totally, brother. When I was telling you earlier in the show that we had basically relocated. Well, we've got this huge detached garage, and I built myself a nice spacious gym in there with, you know, I got my dumbbells, my squat rack, my deadlift platform, you know, and it's just like you say. I mean, I could just go out there, crank up the tunes. I mean, sometimes I'm not even lifting yet, and I'm fucking hooting and hollering and singing fucking crazy music because it feels good. It's like my time, you know, drop that fucking garage door. I'm in there by myself, you know, it's my time, you know.
Some days where you go in there and just have music, but you end up just like cleaning and organizing and you feel just as good about it.
Dude, oh my God, dude. You and I must have been fucking separated at birth, because there's something about organizing anything that makes me feel good. You know, I sometimes find myself as I'm warming up, I'm moving shit around. Oh, this fits better here. And I'm like, okay, you're going to get back to this once you get your intense shit out of the way. Once you're fucking doing your core work or your fucking planks, then you can organize between sets. But you're so correct.
The gym,
and the music is going, organizing, training. This is like heaven.
Yeah, I love it. I love trying to currently just optimize the gym, as in like, because I know me enough to know like where I'm really lazy. And one of those is like, if the dip bars aren't already attached to the rack and I need to do dips, I'm not going to attach. Yeah. They need to be permanently in place so that I can just jump on dips and go. Otherwise I'll do something triceps. And so like trying to like, I can have dip bars set up, but they're never in the way of anything else. Like I love figuring out that puzzle.
Oh, dude. I mean, so with the deadlift and the squat, I always make sure that there's a plate left on each one, you know? So it's like I could show up and just start right into my warm up. You know, I don't like having to put, you know, at the gym, you got to fucking go to an empty setup, start fucking putting shit on there. It's like I said, this is our deal. This is exactly how we want it. And it feels fucking good to be in there uninterrupted, baby. You know? Yes.
I need to come down there. Come do a tour of the gym and come actually do one of these in person with you, brother.
That'd be great, brother. That'd be total. I would love it, man. Both of our places are set up here in Southern Cal and in Mexico. We have guest houses in both places. So, because, you know, as we get older, you know, we're 25, you know, have your buddies come over and sleep in the next bedroom is great. But, you know, as we get older, we'll still hang out, but it's time for you to go out and have your own space. I can have my space. And
exactly.
So, yeah. And then obviously, you know, if, you know, it's just in terms of just having larger groups too, having a separate area, you know, for people to be like, you know, our daughters, you know, they're there and, you know, they want to bring friends home and fucking have a good time. You know, they can fucking rock in the guest house and I can go to sleep in the main house, you know?
Let me be clear. I'm not doing this to make things more comfortable for my guest. I'm doing it so that I whenever I fucking want to, and you're never in the way.
I love it, dude. You read that. You read me like a fucking book.
I
love it, dude.
Inconvenience you're getting rid of.
Oh my God. No, that would be great, brother. I would love it.
This has been great. Where can people find all your stuff if they want to come, you know, work with you or train? Or so.
Yeah. Well, the best way to get a hold of me is my Instagram. Because I've got many social media platforms, but I can really only spend a lot of time at one, which is going to be my hands down, my DM and in the Instagram. So basically at the Jon Andersen, my name is spelled a little fucked up. So it's Jon, first name and last name. I got the duck and double whammy. My last name is Andersen. So Jon at the Jon Andersen. And you'll know if you find the right page because most of the fucking posts is me fucking flexing, screaming, trying to fucking get you off the goddamn couch and get to work.
I love it, man. And your book, Deep Water, still selling?
It's actually on Amazon. Yeah. So yeah, it's on Amazon, still going strong. Yeah. So it's the thing I want to remind people about my book is it's really more about the philosophy. Because deep water, people, what is deep water? Well, deep water is really a philosophy of personal improvement. The actual program is different than that. Of course, it's all kind of wrapped into one. But the book, it's great. It gives real basic, straightforward guidelines for people to kind of get started. And then a lot of times what happens is people work it, they'll see great results, and they'll come and work with me directly. Because at that point, we're talking about the stuff we talked about earlier. Okay, what are the right fats for you? What's the right proteins for you? Deep Water, the book, is a little bit of a blanket, but it's inside my guidelines, you know. Sure. But bottom line is, well, all I want is when people come in contact with me to be fucking motivated, to feel like they can fucking do more than they could before they fucking stumbled across my big dumb ass.
Dude, I don't think that's ever been a problem, Jon. Your energy's always been great, man. And, you know, oddly enough, I think this is our first time to talk back, as oddly as it is. But yeah, I'm always excited to make new friends. And
oh, brother, I was so excited when we put this thing in the books. I was like, that's why I texted you last week, said, hey, we're still confirmed, right?
Oh, yeah. My travel schedule's been nuts between Dubai, and then I was in Zimbabwe for a little bit doing a rafting trip, and then was in Iceland 3 weeks before that. So it's been all over, but man, it's been fun.
Nice. So, I love it.
Jon,
well, brother, next one, let's do it in person, just like you said. How's that sound?
I'll come out your way. I make it out West Coast and still travel with the show quite a bit. So
let's do it, baby. Brother, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. And everybody check it out, and we will see you next week.